Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Rebecca Suazo King. And we're going to be discussing her amazing book, Harvey J. Caterwal, Attorney at Law. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a whole host of other places. But most importantly, check out our personal site, RebeccaSuazoKing.cobpublishing.com. There, you'll find more information on her, information on the book, hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing pages. But in addition, she's got another book. That one is called Harvey J. Caterwal and the Old Bakery, and hopefully so much more on the horizon. People, I'm telling you, it truly is a one-stop shop. RebeccaSuazoKing.cobpublishing.com. Yeah, that's where you gotta go. And I quickly want to point out the fact that Rebecca was brought to our network by one of the best publishing firms in the business, City of Books. So if you're a writer who has gone through their process and now you need help moving that masterpiece you just developed, well, look no further than City of Books, people, because they're the best movers in the business. You want to head on over to cityofbooks.com today and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And people, it is a true pleasure to have Rebecca here on the line. Man, her book is... Let me tell you something. It is fun, it is entertaining, but it is educational. We are going to follow a sharp-witted animal attorney who takes the stand to teach kids about empathy, conflict resolution, and the power of words. Trust me when I tell you, this book is as educational as it is entertaining. It is filled with wonderful ways when you're watching this playful protagonist instruct others on how to operate accordingly, how to resolve conflicts in a much better way. Well, in addition to be able to learn that, your children are also going to increase their vocabulary because, see, Rebecca thought of it all. In this poetic book and how it's articulated, it's filled with different words that your children may or may not have learned. And if they haven't, have no fear. There is a glossary at the end of the book that is going to help teach them the definitions to all of it. This is such an enlightening book and something that, even some of my adults out there listening in are going to be able to benefit from, because sometimes I'm speaking to some of y'all, and I'm not going to name any names. You know who you are. You have some issues resolving your conflicts yourself. You have some issues effectively communicating what you're feeling. And this book is also for you, okay? You can still buy it for your kids, hide it like it's for them, but benefit from it as well, okay? Now, listen, joking aside, this book has so much to offer, and we are thoroughly looking forward to this discussion. Let's jump right in. Rebecca, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Absolutely. Listen, it's a pleasure to have you here. Like I said, as a parent myself, this is something that is particularly fond and close to home here. So I'm looking forward to this discussion and really picking your brain a little bit about how this all came to fruition. First and foremost, Rebecca, tell us more about yourself and your background.
I'm from a family of book readers. We've always loved reading books. I've always had the desire to write a book. My parents were big readers, and they constantly had books around, and it was something I always wanted to do. The animals featured in this book are actual pets that I have grown up with over the years, and I really feel like it was something that I've always wanted to do, but always made excuses to not follow through with it.
Love that. Well, Rebecca, I'm glad you finally came around to it. Now, I have to start with inspiration because first and foremost, that is a very interesting piece. I wasn't aware that these animals were based upon animals that you've had throughout your life. So there is a particular connection there for you. But also your main character, your main protagonist, Harvey J. Caterwal. Now, it's interesting that he has the name Caterwal because, of course, the dictionary definition of that is to protest, right? To a noisy complaint or so. What inspired you not only to write this narrative, but specifically to name your character that? And maybe there's connection because maybe you actually had a pet that was named that.
I did have a cat named Harvey, and he was the sweetest cat. It was actually my husband's idea to name him Caterwal because he's a cat, and Caterwauls, cats often make strange noises. So it was just a play on words, to tell you the truth. It wasn't like I looked it up and thought, what a perfect name for a cat. It was just something my husband thought of.
So we understand the title and where that came from. Shout out to your husband. But the main character being an attorney and the journey that he embarks upon, where did this all come from?
Harvey is really based on my husband. My husband is an attorney, and he's very wise, and he's very patient, and he gives really good advice. The way I decided to finally write the book was my husband was going on a business trip to Montreal. He wanted me to come with him, and I said, no, what am I going to do? I'll just be in the hotel. I don't want to, sit around and wait for you to get done with your meetings. And then he said, just come anyway. And I said, I just, if I'm going to come, I have to have a purpose. And so I said, I'll just write a children's book while I'm waiting in the hotel for you to get done with your meetings. And that's how it happened. And so I generally travel with him when he goes to his meetings, and it gives me an opportunity to write in peace and quiet. I have 3 children, and so it's just a great opportunity for me to concentrate, which is something that I don't often have the opportunity to do.
I get it. There's not much peace and quiet happening in that household. I can tell you that much. Well, Rebecca, without further ado, tell us about your book, Harvey J. Caterwal, Attorney at Law.
Harvey J. Caterwal is a local attorney for a little town, and people often go to him for advice. And in this book, there is a border collie named Chuck and his son Pip. They were both dogs that we had growing up. They come to him because Chuck has a property, and the tenants that he has renting the houses are just angry, and they fight with each other, and they argue, and he's just really upset. What Chuck wants to do is evict them. And Harvey, because he's an attorney, says, well, you can't evict them because they have contracts with you, and its contract is found. And interspersed with this story are lots of words that the kids probably aren't, familiar with. I used the word utter dismay, and he bade them come in. It's in poem form. And so the kids will learn new words, but I kind of need to use those more difficult words in order to make the rhymes kind of make sense.
Yeah.
But Harvey actually advises them that they can try to strategize to help tenants get along better and to figure out what the problem is. Why are they fighting so much? Why can't they get along? And so the story is a journey of how they figure out how to help them in a way that isn't just throwing them out and, without, it's a very compassionate way for them to solve this problem. And Harvey helps them see that.
People, again, the book is called Harvey J. Caterwal, Attorney at Law. We're here on the line with Rebecca Suazo King. You're going to want to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but make sure to check out her personal site, RebeccaSuazoKing.cobpublishing.com. Rebecca, my follow-up question as we close out, because I do want to give you a couple of minutes to go into your other book briefly. I'm curious, throughout this writing process, what would you say was a highlight, or maybe something that stood out that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon the journey?
I would say that if I can write a book, anybody can. And I think I think you have to give yourself the opportunity to really try, because I've been thinking about it for years. I wrote a blog years and years ago, and then I kind of gave it up. But it was something that was always in the back of my mind. And I think that I learned through this process that if I have enough self-discipline when I write, I don't have TV on, I don't have the radio on, I don't have any outside interferences. I just sit and quietly concentrate, and the story evolves itself. I can't just say, oh, the next book is going to be about this, because as I write, it kind of just evolves, and you have to be pretty fluid with how the story takes you. I feel very inspired to tell people that they can write if they feel an inclination at all to do so. I truly believe that. Everybody has a book in them. But this has just taught me that I really, if if I give myself the opportunity, I can actually make something I can be quite proud of and something that will be helpful to, children or to adults. But it was been a very positive experience.
Rebecca, I think that is a great piece of advice and just a great notion of inspiration. Because I think oftentimes, whether it's writing or anything else, how often do we find ourselves in positions where we have the inspiration to do something, right? We want to become something or involve ourselves in some type of process, and we hold ourselves back, either through fear of rejection or whatever the case may be. And listen, sometimes people ain't nothing to it but to do it. You just got to take that leap of faith. And I get it. Not as easy. It's much easier said than done, right? It's not as easy in the moment, but it's a great, great notion and a great piece of advice that you've offered there. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. Let's go into your other book now, because again, this is now starting to develop, hopefully many more on the horizon, but starting to develop almost into a series, because this next book, Harvey J. Caterwal in the Old Bakery. So we still have the main protagonist there. Now he's on a different journey entirely. Tell us a little bit more about that book so we know what to expect when we head on over and pick it up.
Sure. The next book has the characters from the first book. There were two tenants in the first book, and they end up falling in love and getting married. In the next book, they go to Harvey after they're married, and they say, Harvey, we want to reopen this old bakery that's been sitting on this corner of the town, and it's been neglected for years, and it's pretty ramshackled, and we really want to fix it up. So Harvey helps them, with the legalities of it. They're getting ready for the grand opening, and they find out that the Dodger, who was supposed to make the sign, didn't do it. And so they're stressed, and they're trying to figure out how are they supposed to open in time if the sign isn't ready. Dodger's my dog right now, by the way. He's a little West Highland Terrier. But Harvey says, well, did you ask why there's been a delay? Maybe there was a reason. So again, this is another attempt at conflict resolution, because the couple, they are angry, and they have every right to be, and they want to go blame him. Mm-hmm. And Harvey said, did you ask him why? And so they kind of stopped. No, we didn't ask why. So they go back and they ask him why, and they find out that he was taking care of his mother who was sick. And so anyway, in the end, they get the sign made because they all kind of work together, and they open in time. And I really love the second book. I'm very excited about it. The third book is Harvey J. Caterwal giving advice to his son, who comes to him with a problem at school. So this doesn't really have Harvey giving legal advice, but it's more just good counsel when it comes to dealing with friends at school.
Yeah.
Because there's this kid who's a lot of fun, but he tends to get in trouble. And so Harvey advises his son on how to be a good influence and how to try to not make the friend feel judged, or but just kind of redirect him into a more positive, set of behaviors. And so that's what the third book will be.
So I started off the interview by saying, A, how entertaining this book is, but how educational it is. And really, you can already start to see a through line through all three of these books. And although each of them are completely different adventures, completely different concepts, the connection that I find amongst the three and the lesson to be found here is the power of effective communication. That is something that is, I think, and this is what, I said it jokingly at the beginning just to add some levity, but I really do mean it. My adults out there listening in, man, my parents out there listening in, this is something you can all take and run with as well. Now, if you have a child to purchase the book for, then it's twofold, right? But how often in times of conflict do we rush to say certain things that we don't necessarily mean? Do we say something out of anger?
Because we're emotional.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why, Rebecca, I think what you've done here is so special and so powerful, because it hones things in. It allows you to recenter. And I've always been like this because as an artist myself, I guess I'm biased, and my background being in filmmaking, I always try to analyze things from different perspectives and see what is the message here, what is being told, and how can we teach this message through someone else's eyes. Because for me, it's been much easier for me to receive a message when it's not me directly getting told the message, right? When it's not me going through it.
Well, because as people, human nature makes us very defensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we become defensive, we're way less receptive to hearing any kind of criticism or correction.
Absolutely.
But when you approach it with more calm consideration and, more love, you're way more susceptible to heed whatever is being said if you're not feeling attacked. And so I think most definitely it's about communication, how we communicate with each other.
I guess what I'm saying, without saying it very effectively, Rebecca, is I wish that this book was given to a young Benjamin, because my goodness, I would have gotten myself out of so many fights. I would have been on cloud nine. Yeah, right. It's like it took me some time and some relationships to get there, but my goodness, I got there. All right, I got there, and now my wife is the beneficiary of all of it. But no, people joking aside, honestly, man, you all got it, okay? I'm going to say it for you again. I know I don't have to, because you're there already. You're heading on over. You're purchasing the books. Well, once again, it's Amazon. It's Barnes & Noble. It's Rebecca Suazo King, cobpublishing.com. That's where you got to go. Remember, the anchor for today that we discussed was Harvey J. Caterwal, attorney at law. The next book, Harvey J. Caterwal, In the Old Bakery. There's a third. Man, listen, people, check back in frequently, because I think that there's going to be a lot more on the horizon. And this is what I want you all to do. This is the challenge that I pose to each and every one of you. By the overwhelming show of support, when you head on over there and purchase the book, that's going to be the message to tell Rebecca, yeah, we're going to need some more of those, okay? It's teaching my kids some things. It's allowing me to have some peace and quiet, but it's also helping me in my personal life work through some things in a much more mature and patient way. Yeah, I'm telling you, these books have a lot to offer. Head on over there, pick up copies, and figure out why I say just that. Rebecca, this has been a true pleasure. I really do mean it, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.